Thank you. Thank you. I need all I can get.
Well, thank you for joining us here this weekend. Coming back to Raleigh. How you been?
It's been great. It's been great. You know, conventions are really an atypical representation of life because the people who come to conventions, they are determined to like you. They think that you're funny and you're personable and you had an effect on their lives. At least that's what I keep hearing. And it's nice to be as freaking old as I am and still have people know who I was. Still am, by the way.
Well, so cool. Well, first of all, you are one of the you're one of the most fantastically well-read guys I've known. And so off the bat, just real quick, just for me, what are you reading? What have you been reading lately?
Say that again?
What have you been reading lately? Because you're a voracious reader.
Oh, well, it's an interesting book. I don't know, I'm in the South, so. But I'm not going to be here that much longer. And so I got to be true to myself, folks. So if I offend you with my comments, you have to understand that I'll be 88 in September. So I'm giving a little. So I'm reading a book called What We Can Learn from the Germans. And it's a book that compares and contrasts Nazi Germany and slavery in the Deep South. And it's a fascinating book. Hitler used slavery in the Deep South as his prototype for developing Nazi society. So it's quite fascinating to learn about how different, particularly how the different states in the South responded to that, to slavery, to the Emmett Till. There's a whole chapter on Emmett Till. He was a 14-year-old boy who supposedly whistled at a white girl, and he was skinned alive. His torture and death were so horrible that his mama insisted that his coffin be left open because she wanted the world to see what civilized man was capable of doing. So it's an extraordinary book, and it just tells us that none of us are without sin, and that those who support civil rights and the rights of all people. I'm on your side, and I hope you folks are as well. Do we have any questions?
We have a couple here from the stage, if you don't mind. I've done several panels with you at conventions like this, and we always talk about the standard Star Trek questions and Babylon 5 questions. But I wanted to go into a little bit about your passion for collecting that you've done over the years. I got to know a little bit about it from our mutual friend Bob Burns, who has an immense collection himself. But you sort of concentrated on certain types of things in your collection. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Well, they're almost exclusively pornographic.
Good. I was hoping you'd admit it. Yes.
Okay. As a kid, I was never, a disturbed kid. I lived in kind of an isolated environment. After the age of 11 or 12, I didn't have any friends anymore. They all moved away. And I was a virgin until I was 22, which is really probably the most reprehensible thing I can say about my life. So I needed something that I could embrace, that I could focus on, that would give me some sense of, I don't know, friendship, warmth, pleasure, something. So I started collecting gum cards and pinback buttons little way before your time. They're called Big Little books.
Yeah.
They were before comic books. And I had all these things when I was 12, 13, 14. And then, like everybody else's parents, when I went to college, they were all thrown out. Bless Mom. So I started again. In fact, my wife bought me my first Big Little book when I was in like 1964 or something like that. The books that I had when I was 10 and 11 years old in 1946, 1947. So, and I don't know what the psychological reasons are, and I'm not really sure it's worth devoting a lot of time to it. It's just that it was a comfort thing. You know, people eat food for comfort. I collect it for comfort. So it's all comic related. It's not comic books, but I do have all the Big Little books that were ever published. But I collect figurines that go back to figurines go back to the 1930s. They were made in Germany. American comic strip characters. They were made in Germany. They were called knotters because they had a string that attached the head to the body, and you could move the head back and forth and up and down. And they were beautifully sculpted. So lots of figurines, pinback buttons. The pinback buttons go back to 1896. The Yellow Kid was the first comic strip character that appeared in newspapers. Yeah, and gum cards. I have a lot of old. It's kind of ironic and kind of fun, the fact that the stuff that I used to collect, I've now found myself on some of these things. You know, bizarre. You know.
How was that the first time you saw yourself on a gum card?
In a mixed audience?
Yes.
Oh, well, it wasn't that bad. I thought, well, that's neat, you know. And how did this happen? I never had an enormous sense of destiny. I was like a leaf in the wind. I was kind of letting my life just carry on and go where it was going to go. I had no concept of being a professional actor. I mean, I performed. I did the lead in the 6th grade play, and the 10th grade play, and the 12th grade play, my freshman year in college. And then when I went to UCLA, I worked in the theater arts department a lot. Never believed that I could become a professional actor. To me, being a professional actor was being like Rock Hudson, you know. And Rock Hudson, I wasn't, or am not. So, but I did have one instructor. I took one acting class just for fun while I was majoring in psychology, and he was very supportive. My father had just passed away, and this gentleman was very supportive, and he was the West Coast representative of drama school in New York. And he convinced me. He says, "What do you have to lose? You know, you don't have people you're supporting. You're only 22 years old. Why don't you give it a shot?" So he wrote a letter, and I went back there, and my classmates were James Caan, Christopher Lloyd, Dabney Coleman, Jessica Walter, Brenda Vaccaro, and another actress. I can't think of her name. Yeah. So, and they had enormous careers, and Chris Lloyd is still going very strong. We were best buddies. We hung out together. He came from extraordinarily rich people. They owned Texaco Gas, you know, and he had a house in the country with an elevator and an organ, a musical organ I'm talking about, that was 3 stories high. So, yeah. So I don't know what my point was, other than what was my point?
Your point was that you've been interested in this kind of thing for a long time, and the collecting was something that reminded you of when you were a kid and helped sort of establish you in your later career.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right,
Good night.
hey, everybody, Walter Koenig, ladies and gentlemen. All right.
No,
I'll tell you what. I'll go in there and I'm going to start taking the audience questions.
Okay.
But before that, just real quick, on behalf of myself and Darren and this whole audience, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your talents and your professionalism and all the performances you've done and all the writing you've done and the fact that you've been a friend to fandom for a very long time. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
While Patty is out there collecting questions,
We'll do a line.
I just want to follow up a little bit on Chris Lloyd and when you saw him again when he was working on Trek 3, the third Trek movie. It was sort of a tentative reunion, wasn't it?
It wasn't any. We're talking about Chris Lloyd. As I say, Chris and I were good buddies. We really were. We really hung out together at the Playhouse. And I made him laugh, which was an achievement. But I was doing the motion picture, Star Trek motion picture, and he was doing Taxi on the same lot. So I went across the lot to where his dressing room was. And I hadn't seen him in 2 or 3 years. So I was expecting a really, warm, cordial, friendly greeting. And he came out and said, and I said, "Hey, Chris, it's Walter." He was doing that fucking character. It really pissed me off. So I said, well, obviously, I got the wrong Chris Lloyd, and I walked away. So I didn't see him again until we did Star Trek 3. And I'm sitting down, and he walks in the room. Now, bear in mind, this is 2.5 Star Trek motion pictures later. Yeah. And he looks at me, and there's a kind of sheepish grin on his face, which told me that he remembered our last conversation. And because he had a sheepish grin, there was still some twinge of perhaps regret on his part for not having dealt with me like the great person that I am. So I forgave him. Fuck it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Darren, you don't have to worry about people calling you Santa Claus while he's around.
Well, I'm glad for that.
Absolutely. What's your name?
Santa Mike of Eastern North Carolina. Woohoo!
And what do you want to know?
I would love to know what you think of this, what they call the new golden age of Star Trek, with all the new content coming out in the last 5 years, including Lower Decks and Prodigy and all those wonderful shows. Have you watched them? Have you written for any of them, or have they asked you to write for any of them?
I'm not praying, I swear.
What do you think about all of the new Star Trek content in the last 5 years?
Oh, what do I think of all the new Star Trek content in the last 5 years? Well, I'm not that conversant with it. I started to look at shows that I never saw. I never saw Enterprise, and I just saw a couple of episodes, and I thought they were really quite interesting. They were quite fun. It should have gone more than 4 years. I saw the Pon Thar episode, where the Vulcan lady gets really horny. and she played it so seriously. It was like she had, deadly cancer or something. I mean, she needed it so badly. It's one of those moments when you want to volunteer. So I don't know whatever happened to her. She was quite good in that part, and I feel badly that. Has her career extended? Has she done?
She married a millionaire.
She what?
She married a millionaire.
Oh.
She's good.
Okay, next question.
Yes, there you go. Here you go. Yeah, green one and a red one, obviously. So come on up. Hi, what's your name?
Ted Turno, and living in Prague, Czech Republic.
Really? Oh, wow. Thank you for coming all the way out here.
Yeah, well, and home base in the States is Winston.
Yeah, what would you like to ask?
Um, in the original series, Chekhov is often in danger, just like one step above a red shirt. And in the movies, you had like a leech thing crawl in your ear, and you just get rough treatment. Did you ever get mad at Gene for writing you in such danger all the time?
I loved it. Well, you know, what it meant was that I had something to do, you know. There was I could get engaged for a moment, other than just aye kept in, you know. It was, that's the way I looked at it every time it happened. The reason it happened was because they needed to show jeopardy. They needed to show that, you know, there was always the possibility of something terrible happening. And who better than to have it happen to than the least mature, least adult of the crew. I mean, the most vulnerable of the crew members. And it's more acceptable to have it happen to that person who hasn't, you know, learned to be fortified against pain the way the other members were. So that's why they did it. So it was not a reflection of my character, Walter Koenig, but it was a reflection of the rank and experience of the character I was playing. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you. There you go. Thank you. Well, hi, what's your name?
My name is Ben. I just want to know, what was your main inspiration for Bester in Babylon 5?
What's that?
Your main inspiration for Bester.
What about it?
In Babylon, what was your inspiration for him?
What was my
Your inspiration for him.
my expression?
Inspiration for him.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Oh, so sorry. I'm sorry. Just assisting our friend here.
My inspiration is this is a good part, you know, and this is challenging, and I could have fun with this. And J. Michael Straczynski, who created the character, kept making him more and more dimensional. So he wasn't just the, you know, your stereotypical bad guy. He was a guy with passion and a sense of loyalty to his own. And there was something in there to embrace. So so when people ask me or say to me, how do you feel about playing a bad guy? I don't think of him in terms of bad. I don't think as an actor that you should think of the character you play as being bad, even if he does bad things. Because you got to make the audience believe in his badness. And for the audience to believe in his badness, you have to believe in his goodness, that he's justified in his behavior, that he sees it not as some kind of evil element, but as he can rationalize it and justify it and make it important that he succeed in what he does, regardless of what the rest of the folks think. And I think that's the more you can do that, you know, with whatever character you're playing, I think the more effective you are. Leonard Nimoy was Mr. Spock all the time. I didn't get to meet Leonard Nimoy. I mean, I'd come off the sound stage. I'd come off the set, and I wouldn't see him. Or if I saw him, I'd see him sitting in a corner, obviously with a neon sign saying, "Don't fuck with me." So, and I respected that. Everybody who's played Spock has imitated a Vulcan. Leonard was the Vulcan. He really was that character. He took it home to the chagrin of his family at times, but he really was that character.
Great question. Thank you. Hello, what's your name?
Trey Lawson. Yes. I was wondering, how did your cameo at the end of Star Trek Picard come about?
Voiceover cameo at Star Trek Picard.
Oh, that was fun, you know, playing the voice and the voiceover. that was fun. I mean, it's not a great moment in my life. Uh, they came to my house and we recorded it in my room. I would have loved to have been there at they had a theater screening before they showed it on TV, and nobody was informed about it. So they had the opportunity to discover, what that voice. It's my goodness gracious, So everybody got, well, from what I hear, everybody got very excited and they cheered and they whooped it up. I would have loved to have been there. I was told there was no room for me, so I couldn't go and see it. But yeah, that was nice. It was nice to be remembered. I'm 80. It's hard for me to say. I'm almost 80. So, first of all, I'm still standing, which is pretty good. And that there are people who actually remember who I was. That's neat. I mean, these are the things that an actor thrives on, unless you become very soured, and that can happen as well. Can be a very devastating life and very debilitating being an actor. The disillusionment, the disappointment, all of that really does exist, and it can be incredibly painful, and it can really make you re-examine the purpose of why you're here. I mean, it can be that if you care for this stuff, if you are giving of yourself each time you perform, if it is you who ultimately, in disguise perhaps, with somebody else's words, but still it's got to be you. And when it suddenly you can't do it anymore, or you're not allowed to do it anymore, or you're refused, it can be extraordinarily painful. And I think every actor has gone through it. I'll give you a quick example. My baptism of fire. Baptism of fire. I graduated the neighborhood playhouse. One day after I graduated the neighborhood playhouse, I get a telegram, not a phone call, because I don't have a phone. I'm living in New York. I get a telegram from a theatrical agency. Report to such and such to meet John Frankenheimer, who's directing a movie. And he wants to meet you. Now, this is amazing. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have anybody. I had nobody in New York. So I'm thinking, this is such an extraordinary moment. You get out of school, you cut the ties that bind, you're on your own, you're out in deep space without a lifeline, and somebody throws you a hook, and you grab on. So I go to that meeting, and who set it up? Sidney Pollack, who was my teacher. He'd worked with me at the Playhouse, and he set up this meeting with Frank. Well, to make a long story short, they guarantee me that I'll be in this movie that Frankenheimer's directing with Burt Lancaster. You remember Burt Lancaster, right? And Shelley Winters. And I'm going to play Big Dom, who's a bad kid, and he operates out of a pool room. But part is mine. What a way to start a career. I mean, it's just amazing. And of course, it never happened. Those things don't happen. But Sid Pollack said to me,
Well, the missiles are in the air. Let's make the most of it.
all is forgiven, come home. Bill Shatner.
You deserve that.
Anyway, trying to make this story short, but it's worth telling again and again because it gives you some insight into what the career of an actor is like. So, I called Sid Pollack. every other day.
Your phones are late.
I reach him and he says, we're going to shoot it in L.A. instead of New York. Can you get out to L.A.? And I said, yeah. It would have been nice if they'd offered to fly me out, but they didn't offer to fly me out. But he says, you'll still be in it. Okay. The days go by. I fly to L.A. Somebody says to me, there's a play that they're doing called The Rainmaker that you'd be very right for. So I went on the audition, and I thought I was not right at all. And so it's a lovely play. An actor named Earl Holliman did the part in the movie. Earl Holliman is like 6'2", and the character described as eating like 2 dozen eggs for breakfast and all of this stuff. I said, I don't really think I'm. And he says, it's okay. We'll get shorter actors to play opposite you. So I got the play, I got the movie, and I'm in LA for like 10 days when all this happens. So I am strutting. I am feeling so good about life. Still haven't gotten the word from Sid when we were going to start. The first rehearsal for the play is on a Sunday. I was still living at my mother's house. Now, that's part of the pity of this whole thing. Still living with my mama. And I call Sid. Oh, sorry, Walt, I meant to call you. We changed the character. And I can't cast extras. Extras? It was never a question about being an extra. An extra is furniture, is background, doesn't have lines. That was never what we discussed. I had a good character. I had big dog, So I don't have the part. I'm not in the movie. I stagger out the door. I go to literally 25 minutes away is the rehearsal for the play. I walk in the door. Everybody is already around the table reading. I said, am I late? The director says, oh, I meant to call you. They recast the part without telling me. I said, if I'm still want to be an actor tomorrow, then it's destined. Then Star Trek will happen, even though I never heard of the term then, And yeah, the next day I woke up and said, okay, those 2 devastating, disillusioning, disappointing, all the bad D words, but still I'm hanging in there. So that's my story, but that's what actors go through all the time.
Ooh. Yep, there you go. Thank you. All right, real quick. Who saw Star Trek Picard and who heard his voice? All right, everybody, make some noise then. Make some noise. All right, what up?
Who saw Star Trek Picard and heard your voice?
Oh, okay.
What did I give you that? Hi, what's your name?
My name is Avery.
Hello, Avery. What do you want to know?
I'm curious about your writing. What inspired the giant Spock? Because that's an amazing, memorable image.
Say that again.
What inspired you to write The Infinite Vulcan for the animated series?
What?
The giant Spock episode of the animated series.
Oh,
You wrote that one.
what inspired me?
Yeah.
My imagination inspired me. Oh, no, yeah. It was a period when cloning had become a very popular issue. I think they cloned a lamb or a calf or something, and I just extrapolated. I said, what if this sometime in the future they were cloning people and even improving on the product? So I wrote the episode with that in mind.
Cool. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, what's your
By
name?
the way, it was Dorothy Fontana's favorite episode.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice. Hey, what's your name?
My name is Brian.
What do you want?
Well, Star Trek has always been a utopian society, and what was it like representing a Russian character on a crew with from people all over different cultures during the Cold War?
Of all the problems that one might have doing a series or doing any kind of theater work, my being the Russian character was never an issue. My mail came mostly from young kids who wrote in pencil on lined paper. You're groovy. And I love your hair, which wasn't my hair. I didn't get any controversial mail. I didn't say, what are you doing playing? I didn't get any mail that said, what are you doing playing a red, a commie, you know? It was never an issue.
There you go. Thank you. Hi, what's your name?
Angel. Did you enjoy working on Star Trek or Babylon 5 most?
Huh?
What did you prefer more, working on Star Trek or working on Babylon?
It's a good question. I'm not sure I can answer it definitively one way or the other. You know, being on Star Trek is why I'm here today. Well, I'm enormously grateful for the opportunity. Did I ever feel challenged artistically? Not really. Maybe Star Trek 4, Voyage Home, a little bit. But, you know, it was an aye, sir part. That's what I did mostly. Aye, sir, aye, sir, aye, sir. You know, I don't know how many people know, but I left the show for a month in the 3rd season. I asked to be relieved. I knew we weren't going to be picked up at that point. And I had an opportunity to do a play with Jackie Coogan. Those of you who remember the Addams Family, at least, remember Jackie Coogan, Uncle Festus, Festers. But he was also the kid opposite Charlie Chaplin back in the days of silent films. And he was great fun. We had a ball together. It was the best month of my career. I mean, in terms of just having a good time. So there's that to say in defense of Star Trek. On the other hand, getting to play Bester was you know, he was a much more dimensional character. And Joe, as the mail came in and the reaction became more evident that people were pleased by my performance, he wrote the character in greater detail and kept bringing me back. It was only supposed to be one shot, and I did 12 episodes. So, and here I felt I wasn't just the, I can't think of any of those young guys who were teenage heartthrobs. Tell me one.
Yeah.
Davy Jones, yeah, there's Davy Jones, Bobby Sherman, you know. I was a character with some substance, you know, whose life was dimensional. So it was, for me, the best continuing opportunity I've had to show that I was an actor. So I am enormously grateful for the opportunity to do that. And I thought it was ultimately more rewarding artistically.
There you go. Do you have a preference?
Babylon 5.
All right, there you go. We have time for just one more question, I'm afraid. So, all right, what's your name?
Jesse,
Jesse, bring us home.
what is one of your more treasured memories of our departed friends from Star Trek? Just one treasured memory, please.
What are your best memories you had from your castmates who are no longer with us on
Okay.
Star Trek?
DeForest Kelley was everybody's friend. He was just warm. He moved effortlessly between Leonard and Bill and the rest of us. He was somebody you could talk to at any time. Leonard, you know, was the ultimate professional. He was always in character. He was always that extraordinary alien. Never doubted him. Never doubted the performance. Never doubted. And a very socially conscious man. Not on a personal basis, not with me, but he supported charitable efforts. He was very much into civil rights. A guy you could respect. Jimmy was volatile and full of life, a loyal friend. When it came time to, we had a whole thing with Paramount regarding money, and money that was that we felt was deserved, and we hired an attorney to represent us. And Jimmy was by far the one who had the most to do among the supporting actors, and he insisted that we divide that money equally. And that's the kind of guy he was, a loyal friend, with very strong feelings, you know. And some very funny stories, some of which really are pornographic, and I can't really. George, very interesting man. Came from a culture, you know, a subculture. He was Japanese American. Extremely professional on the set. He got the short end on several occasions, particularly when we were doing the features, and never let it show, never let us see it. It was only after the fact that we saw that how angry he had been. Bill cut him out of a scene where his character is promoted. Yes, thank you. Promoted in rank, and that was terribly important to George. It was important as a reflection of, as he saw it, of the character's progress and his development. And as a Japanese American, he wanted people to see that they could be promoted in rank and be respected at the highest levels. That was George. Nichelle was just a delight. I love Nichelle. We got along great together. From the very first day when she was looking for the birds in my hairpiece, right until the end. This is something that I forgot for years. We bonded on a particular moment. We were at a convention, and we were about to go on stage. We were backstage, and a guy came over with a magazine, a really dirty old magazine. And he opened it up, and it was a naked picture of Nichelle. He said, "Is this you?" And I said, "Get the fuck out of here, and don't you ever show that picture to anybody. How dare you?" She said nothing. But like 5 minutes later, there was a voice behind me saying, "Thank you, Walter." So that's the way I remember those folks.